Hi, everyone. It is Alasia and Corbett. We are here again for another LTX Studio product webinar. We see people are already piling in. We're excited that you're with us today. Corbett, how are you feeling?
Doing all right, feeling pretty good. My job is always made easier when the product team makes tons of new stuff to talk about. So it's easier to fill the space each month when we have all these great things coming out.
Absolutely. And shout out to everyone who has already joined. Brett, Grant, Marco, Marcus, Rachel, Timothy. So many cool people are on. We're happy to have you. And I know people always ask, is this recorded? Yep, this is going to be recorded and we will ensure it's uploaded to YouTube. We try and get it up as soon as possible. So continue to keep an eye out. But rest assured it will be available again after we're live today.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of folks joining, but we'll give it one more minute. And for now, as kind of to test out things, we'll do our best to answer questions during this. Alasia will keep her eyes out as I'm going through some things. But for now, feel free to drop in a note on where you're calling in from so we can see around the world. That's always fun. And then during this process, you can ask questions, and we'll do our best to address them. Cool. So, as we've got most folks joining, I'll just run through the agenda real quick and then we can
Yeah.
dive in. So, today there's a lot to talk about. We have a ton of new updates in the video editing space. We've got some new model updates to talk about, some pretty new workflow updates. For example, new flows you can do to scale work with LTX Studio and some just minor but really useful features in the Gen space overall. So we'll be going through them in the context of a project that one of our teammates made. And then after that, we'll jump out of the platform and show just some general tools like dubbing and captioning for just broad tools for all video usage, but they're kind of pocketed outside of the project. So we'll show those after. But yeah, so we'll start by showing a piece of content because I think that's a fun way of seeing, a final asset and then diving into the project so people can see underneath the hood of what it looks like during the creation process. So, before we dig in, yeah, it looks like Timothy, welcome from New York. That's where Alasia is. I'm in Chicago. Feel free to drop where you guys are calling in from. We tend to get folks from all over for these. So, okay, and then I'm going to share my screen. I'll start with this project. This was made by our wonderful Adam Palmer, actually there in New York, and it's a sample video advert. It's an ad for a made up brand basically for us made up ad, and then we'll show that, and then we'll dive into the project in LTX Studio. All right, so I'm going to start by sharing that. Give me one minute. All right, here we go.
The world is full of adventures waiting to happen. Take the family somewhere extraordinary with Tripoli. Tripoli. Make memories that matter.
All right. So before diving into the project, just I wanted to call out like the stunning advancements just month over month in quality for this stuff because when we started doing these webinars and just in general like releasing things, let's just take a year ago, the quality just keeps getting better. It's this relentless improvement between the image models that underpin the assets and the video models that translate them into motion, and then the platform features that allow you to stitch things together. So, I mean, when I was looking through this, I was just really astounded by the natural quality of the motion, the consistency of the character, and there's some surprising things we'll get into, but even some of the high def areas of the quality and the upscaling. So we'll get into all this. Sometimes it doesn't translate perfectly on Zoom, even though we optimize it for video sharing. But what we can do is share this in the Discord so that you all can see the finished product that we went through so you can check it out. But let me reshare now the project screen and start there. Give me 1 second. I'll share here the LTX Studio project. So we're going to share this um, and dive into the product file itself. This is the homepage. There's always a few edits and updates here, but we'll later show on the left side here the dubbing and captions. We'll go into that in the side panel. But for now, we're going to spend most of this project in the project file for this Tripoli ad that we made. One surprising thing I want to call out actually is that despite this like incredible character consistency, the element here is just one image of the girl. So for example, if I'm editing this, it's just one image. And so all of that amazing consistency is just from one image. You can drop up to 10, but I wanted to point out like the stunning consistency we have from that. So it's worth just thinking about like how far that's come along. And not always will you get, every result perfect, but more and more sometimes for elements I'll just drop in, a single image and see what I get. But you can drop in more if you're getting stuck or need more variety in terms of something like that. I've also seen some pretty cool concepts recently where folks are like aging or changing in the videos, and so you might need to make different characters with that. So you could do like OG girl as a teenager, OG girl as adult, etc. But for something like this, you just try it with a minimal amount for the elements and see what works. Last time we talked about the brand kit and the elements. We went a little bit deeper here, but if you haven't tried that, give it a shot. And it's a fun way to populate some of the things you can tag in your image or in your project, for example, your logo and things like that. But let's pop into some of these tabs in the top. If you haven't seen LTX Studio in a while, there are some new things up here. Last time we talked about Canvas, which is a way for you to kind of like map out in almost like Figma style some of the scenes, for example. There's audio-visual elements you can stack here and arrange kind of in like let's say you're mapping out scenes and you want to map out what something will look like, but you can generate results directly in here. And then you can also import items into here. So it's a way for you to pull in items as well as just generate directly into a space to kind of map things out. Not even storyboarding, but just kind of like a creative workspace. We still do have the storyboard, which I've used here, or I should say our teammate Adam used, to map out the final shot. So instead of starting from storyboard, which we've shown recently in the past, since we've revamped this, and it's excellent, honestly, when you start from scratch with it, often what we'll do is generate items in the gen space, and then once you have your final shots, and you can favorite them, for example, I can favorite this one, but either dropping them in Canvas or Storyboard to get a feel for how the scenes will progress, that can be a really fun way of seeing things before you put them into the video editor, just so you can get a sense of like how this is all working together. There is one new thing up here. Flows is a new tab that you probably haven't worked with, and I'll get into this in a minute. But this is mostly to set up, it looks confusing, but it's just because I was playing around with it. But this is mostly to set up like scaling assets. So for example, um, we didn't use it for this project, but this could be for something like if you're scaling e-commerce and you want different products here with certain parameters that you're always seeing, like a model in this light or with this background, et cetera, and you just want different versions of it or something. It's for scaling assets where you need defined outputs, and we'll show a little bit deeper how to set this up correctly and how to make it work. But at a high level, those are the new parts of the tab up top here, and then we'll dive into the gen space to show how some of these were created. But anything so far, Alicia? Any comments before we dive into some of the project itself?
Yeah, I'm still shocked about only one photo for each character
Right.
representing. I thought for sure when you opened it, it was going to be a shot, a side profile, a front profile. And so to your point, it just goes to show how things are progressing in such a short amount of time.
And I was seeing, is anyone getting echo? I was seeing briefly that Some people were getting echo from my audio. Like, is that working for you, Alasia? Is it coming through okay?
Yeah, I'm good to go and
Cool.
I'll
All
let
right.
you know.
Awesome. All right, cool. So let's dive into the project then. So diving into GenSpace, I want to just show a few items. So in general, it starts off a little bit more chaotic because we're still just figuring out what this project is. And then these later ones, they're more fine-tuned. You can see some of these results have like, 200 elements to them because we were trying to dive into exactly how to make this work. And so some of these are kind of funny. We're just playing around with characters, etc. Um, but there's, as noted before, you can start new sessions here. They will kind of tag them. But in general, when you're creating work, LTX Studio will do a pretty good job trying to bucket them into new elements. But going back to the top when we were playing around with some characters, I'll just show a few different things, some prompt styles and things like that. So going through this, you might notice in some of them, some of the prompts are more detailed and some are more like lazy prompts. You can use things like ChatGPT, etc., to get references of what can make good prompts. But with this, the one thing calling out is we kept the cinematic style the same. So these, prompt languages that we use for the cinematic style, we just kept it the similar for all the prompts. That's why you can kind of see that color grading being pretty universal. But the other trick that we've talked about before, but it's worth calling out again, is when you're trying to transition from scene to scene, to keep it natural, often what Adam and I and others do is once you have this shot, you can create a grid of images, 2x2 or 4x4, and you can include different angles and things to get inspiration. And then when you find one that you like, you can just extract it. And so here you can see us creating different images of interacting with this octopus underwater. And then you can say like, extract frame two, and you can pull that out for to zoom in on this. So for example, let me zoom over to where we did that again. That's honestly a trick we use a lot. Give me one second. But that can be a way. So, for example, here, a 2x2 grid of images with different angles of this girl packing a wheelie suitcase include these types of angles. And again, we kept the some similar cinematic framing like wide angle 20 millimeter lens. If you don't know what to prompt, ask ChatGPT for different examples on cinematic styles to play with. And here you can see we just said extract frame one, and it pulled out like frame one from the most recent result. So that's a quick way of pulling out assets, extract frame three, extract frame four, etc. That way you can stitch together really shots that make sense given the environment you're in, and it's an easy way to keep the context between a scene and keeping it snappy while keeping the context all similar. Um, I've often done something like daisy chaining where you can just take this, copy that prompt and say like, show me this, but show me this, but from a different angle, like from a, bird's eye view. So you can also daisy chain them to get different shots. But when you're asking for that grid result, it's a quick way of getting more faster, basically. So it speeds up your workflow. Going down below here, I want to show something else, which is speaking of different angles. I want to show something new that we released. You might notice actually, let me pull up a good shot for me too. Let me just start with I'll do I'll just use one of these images. I'll use this. Okay. So you might notice here, I'll zoom in a little bit. There's a few new features in here. Number one, when you go to the kind of menu bar in the top right, there's a few new features. One is I don't think we've covered this before, removing background. I'll do that. It'll send it to the bottom, and you can see that. But then there's a few other ones in terms of the edit image here that we released that's new, so it's worth zooming in on this. If you hit edit image, we've talked about brush before, which is the ability to like circle something. Like if I want to remove this thing in an image, it'll regenerate the image, but keep everything the same except changing what you've circled. But we haven't talked about some of these before, like adjusting in camera angle. So if I click camera angle, let me do that. There's a new image editor view here that's pretty fun and fancy. Again, you can still do things like brush. So I could circle this, for example, and say, remove that or whatever. But let me go back to camera angles. Here, you can use these, but you can also use these. And you can say, I want to see it from this angle. So you can adjust this, however you want. And it is a really fun way of distance, etc. It's a really fun way of generating a new angle on something you wanted. You can use text to do that. Like Nano Banana Pro is really good at that. But let's just say you have something really specific in mind or you're struggling. Try this as a way to preview a new result. What it'll do is drop in here and it'll take a minute to load, but I can still keep editing. So I'll show you some of the other features. But let's just do one more. Let's do more like almost bird's eye view and then generate that. So here you can see similar image, just the angle we wanted. And this is just a preview basically. So you could also upscale this, for example, but it's just taking this and then generating the preview we want from this other angle.
Yeah,
So,
I
okay.
think one thing
Yeah.
that's also really
Mhm.
cool about that for bed is that a lot of the times, if you lack the language around camera angles, let's say you're
Yes.
going to make video footage, but you don't have the language to prompt, this tool is a lifesaver in
Yeah.
that regard.
Yeah, and it's worth checking out. Like the consistency is pretty cool. Like look at this blue book here, for example. It's pretty neat how it will keep most inconsistent, like the suitcase color, for example. And even like what's in it, it looks like, I mean, she's covering the part that she's folding, but you can see that shirt is still there. So it does a really remarkable job. And it's fun to play around with. But again, you might need to upscale it. Like this is pretty good. If I click done, this will drop it into the bottom. So I could scroll down and it's down here. Just note that it will kick it out into a new result. So, but for example, maybe I want to like upscale this quality. And I'll just do topaz there. And that might take a minute, to be honest. I'll do it for this one too. Scale, topaz. But I do love the consistency and like you said, Alicia, like the ability to um, like I don't know all the camera terms all the time, like dolly in and dolly out with movement, but the platform will try to show you previews of that. Um, and it's been really helpful because sometimes also you might say something to Nano Banana or one of the models and it just doesn't quite get it. But that's been pretty fun. So I want to share one other thing. Let me go back to my first image. Which one did I use? I'll use this one again. Let me go to edit. So I'm clicking the adjustment one. This was the camera angles over here. This was brush. And then, but I'm going to the camera angles here. This is just a really simple way, almost like your iPhone camera, to adjust things in a really basic way. Like if I wanted to turn down the temperature and make it a little more muted and gray, or, if I wanted to bump up the saturation and make it a little more bright. If I mess it too much, it already has pretty good color grading. I'm not going to improve it much with these, but it's something that you can use to correct something. Like maybe you generated something and you want to correct it. But often too, maybe you want to add a certain effect, like this vignette effect, for example. Maybe you really like the image but you just want to do a few quick tweaks to like the saturation or things like that. This is a really helpful way just to kind of mimic your almost like iPhone editor and save your image with these like quick t tweaks without re-editing it. It's just like adding the coloring tweaks on top of it without actually regenerating. Cool. All right. And then for folks who said, I don't see edit in my interface in GenSpace, a few things. I mean, a lot of these are very new, so try refreshing the project. For example, I'm going to show you a feature today that I didn't. Oh, you got it. Awesome. Good. Today I was playing around with an upscale thing that I'll show you, and I had to refresh my browser because it wasn't loading and then pops back in a few minutes later. So we're constantly releasing things. I mean, in the last 2 weeks. We've been rolling out all these things I'll show today. But so maybe if it's possible your browser is just stale and you might need to refresh as an example. But all right, so we talked about some of these new, again, if you have an image, and this will be for images, you go to edit image, that's how you access these new things. It'll pop open that new panel. You can flip between them here. Note that it'll often show you previews when you generate it. If you click done once you've generated something, it'll pop it at the below. It won't edit that shot in top, like in the top here, it'll drop it below. And that's a quick way for you to access those. There are a few other elements or things you can access on this menu bar over here, like quick upscaling, saving as element, etc. But that editing thing, that will be in edit image, not in this menu bar. All right. So we talked about that. I want to show a few other things. let me just take that image. I'll just use the one we made. I'll just say create video, and I will use I'll show a new model here. So we've talked about this in the past. Our flagship model LTX 2.3 Pro and Fast. These are relatively new. We talked about them in the last webinar. It's a step up from our LTX 2, both of which are doing tremendously well on like the open source, leaderboards, which I was really excited to see. But this is 2.3 is a little bit of a step up. Fast is great. If you haven't tried it, try it. It's amazing. But I want to call out a few updates here. So some of these are a little simplified from when you've seen it in the past in our model picker, but you have a few things here. VO 3.1 Lite is new. So VO is, or VEO, however you want to say it, is Google's flagship model. And the 3 series is the newest one. Fast is really fast. 3.1 is long wait, high cost, but Lite is their most affordable version in this tier. So that's new. That was just released and is something that you can access now. So if you're playing around with things, if you're basically testing out things and it's not like a final generation, try LTX 2.3 Fast. It's really amazing, efficient. But then you can also try VO 3.1 Lite for efficiency. And you can see coming here soon is Kling 3.0 Pro. You might notice actually in this project, because we have these fancy admin permissions that you that you always don't necessarily. You can see a few of the results are Kling Pro in this image, but the daily driver for a lot of them was Nano Banana and like LTX 2.3 Fast, for example. So there's a ton of that, but we were playing around with Kling 3.0 Pro. And so you got a little bit of a preview from the video that I showed you. But the results are pretty similar. I mean, we got great results with, LTX 2.3 Fast. And then for some, we might have taken these and then tried it out with Kling just to see what else we get. So these are all fast. These are all fast. And then fast, let's see. And then this is Kling Pro. So to be honest, if you need something complicated like this transition, you can see it was a really interesting start and end frame transition. That's when we used Kling 3 Pro for that. But for all these basic shots, a lot of these, I'd say most of the time it's just LTX 2.3. And then for sometimes we're using Kling 3 since we are adding it to the platform and testing it out. All right, let's show a few things on the video side. Give me one second. Down here, there's constantly new stuff adding in the menu bar. We talked about audio to video before. We talked about retake. I don't think we talked about extended before, even so. I just want to mention something really briefly. But let's just say you have something. Let me find a good example. Um, maybe just this. I'll just wheels suitcase over to parked plane or something like that. I'll just do fast and I'll do 5 seconds. Sure. Let's do that. So if you get a result that's good and you just need a little bit more, it's something we haven't talked about, but it's a way for you to just get a little bit more footage here. So here we have like a 3 second clip, but I could use that and I've uploaded this, so that's an uploaded one. But you might want to extend your content, and that's just a really great way for you to take something, get a little bit more out of it. So here we can see a 2 second clip basically, or sorry, 5 second clip, and then maybe I want to do extend and just get an additional amount, like 6 seconds, 4 seconds, for example. And it will keep, the same element. We're just adding something in the end. And this is similar to retake that we talked about before, which is you can take a part of the clip and replace it. So extend, you're just adding that runtime. Retake, you're swapping it. Retake can be tricky, but also very useful. It's kind of like brush for video, but extend is much more just basic. You're just getting more lead time for a video. But that one wasn't new in the last few weeks, but we hadn't talked about it, so I wanted to cover that. All right, I'll pause briefly just to see if we're getting any questions before I go to a new section. Anything else worth diving in on?
Let's see, I'm checking out the chat right now. Nothing in particular. I did see some good feedback around that camera angle option.
Mhm.
Amir Music said massive tool, especially if you ever tried to prompt Nano Banana's camera with text. So love that feedback, Amir. But other than that, looks like everyone is
Sure.
really excited about what's going on.
And then there's one question about motion control. I won't do the demo for this because I need a video to add it to, and it'll take honestly takes a minute to load. So it's better to have an example. But you can see this, for example, on the home screen in the motion control here. So you could upload a video of yourself boxing, overlay it on something, um, but just try accessing that here. Motion control, you'd want to upload a video here, the motion reference, and then the starting frame for your project. I would say like this was in the context of getting really precise motion. And to be honest, I've done it um, more for like that boxing example where it's more of like s- just trying to drive like general motion. I haven't tried for something really precise. Like for example, I haven't tried it for like getting like handwriting or something, but for like showing proper workout videos, it should probably work. But for example, dance choreography that's too complex might be a little too hard. But if it's simple things, yes, I would say. But yeah, I'm just saying from personal experience, I haven't tried fine motor control. I've only done like general movements. Like you could twirl someone in a dance, but getting exact footsteps, I don't know. I haven't tried it.
Something
Um,
else that someone just asked Corbett, Brand asked, how could you prevent that black suitcase in the background from starting to move? And I was looking at that suitcase too, wondering if I was missing an individual pulling it, but I'm not. And so from my experience, I'm wondering, Corbett, if the image generated with that black suitcase in
it was, and I didn't even notice that. That's not like I
it?
haven't been. It's a good call. But yeah, I would just remove it from the starting image. Just use
Yeah.
brush. Where did I have that? Let me just show an example of the. I don't know. Let's see. I can't remember if I use this one or not because there's so many like duplicate images, but I'll show just a few notes. So for example, let me just pull up brush for one of these. Brush is really effective for starting frames. So let's just use this, for example, edit image, brush. I'll just like remove this, for example. Um, or you could turn like I could turn this into a pink camera, like turn this camera into a pink camera or something. So brush is really effective. I would say try Nano Banana Pro. It's a little confusing. Nano Banana 2 is actually not more advanced. Nano Banana Pro is better for fine-tuning shots. Nano Banana 2 is just a little more efficient. And so I would use Pro for this. But you can just use that to remove, etc., the starting frame. That's probably the best way. You're right, Alasia. And then to be honest, the other tweak I use is I just um I just often generate more than one result. That time I just generated one. But I and remember I used fast, and so I was just trying to show a result. But when you're trying to get like if you're struggling with motion, you can try LTX 2.3 Pro. You can generate more than one result. You can try to edit the starting reference image or try a different model. But between those, usually you can get there. There's always some, AI work is always a little bit like test and learn, but that one, um, you probably have the most benefit changing the starting image versus just switching the model because artifacts can be weird. So just clean up the starting image basically. All right, I'm not going to really wait for that, but that's how you do that. And then let's see. All right, so that's most of it from the edit space that I wanted to show. And then let's drop into some of these other new tabs. So we've talked about Canvas in the past, but again, pretty cool. It's like multimodal. You can generate right into it. By the way, just as a side note, it is kind of like what do you call it? Figma, where you can, click these buttons to use it to drag around, but there's also some shortcuts. For example, if you're on the select, you can use space and it'll transition to the hand so you can quickly move between selecting and dragging. So there's a few shortcuts that are similar to any other workspace platform like Figma that you can use to like more rapidly toggle between them. For example, and the shortcuts are listed there like text for T, hand for H, but space also works for that one. So, all right, let me go to flows because this is brand new. Flows. So I did something here with our character. So this is not how I'd use it. I just want to show you how you use it. Then we'll talk about where you would use this. So let's say that you have a prompt, and here it generated, this character. What you can do is have a workflow. For example, here was just a really basic one where I had um, Flux 2, Nanobanded Pro, and Z image with the same prompt, and you can see how they each handled it. So it's very small differences. These are kind of emblematic, by the way, though, because Z image is very fast and very cheap and inefficient, but the lighting won't be as good, etc. So you can kind of it's interesting to see them all side by side. But when you want to add a new node, so to speak, let me just zoom out a little bit. Speaking of hand tool, so when you want to add a new node, you can click on it. You can drag, for example, and you can search nodes, but you can also just click on them. So, for example, let's say I want to take this image from Flux 2 Pro and I want to add it to a video so that when I run this flow, it goes from this starting image to an LTX, or I'll just say VO 3.1 Lite example. One note on this, you do also need to add a prompt. And so, like, think about it this way, it's just taking this image, but it still needs a prompt. And so I could do a basic prompt like this, where I'm just adding a default, I'll just say like the girl grabs, let me zoom in so you can see it, um, grabs the camera. Sorry, it's a little slow. And jumps out of bed. So I could have a basic text prompt for everything, but there's some cool things with prompts that I want to show you, and also some fun tools down here at the end, like this little scissor tool. That's fun. Um, but let's just say I'm doing a new prompt. One way to do it, let me just delete that, is to have a prompt builder or prompt enhancer or text iterator. So try these out. One example is here. You could do cinematic shot of, text at sunset. And so you could add a variable chip into these. So these can be quite powerful. Um, and I want to talk about like when you'd use these. So you can use these. Let me do one more just to show you prompt enhancer. So this you could give instructions on to enhance like a certain prompt that you're giving it by default, for example. So it's enhancing the prompt that you're giving it. So I'm getting a little messy here, but I can auto clean it up with this. But I want to just show you a few things about when you'd use this. So when I think about these node-based workflows, I think they're very powerful, but I think they're powerful when you want to scale work. So I don't know, let's say you're running an e-commerce company and you have lots of SKUs. Maybe then you have certain things like scenarios where you want these products in, and so you might set up these, X, Y, and Z model wearing X, Y, and Z product, and you might run these nodes to deliver lots of results when you're just dropping a single different prompt here or a single different input image or something like that. So I wouldn't necessarily you can play around with it to get a feel for it, but the main thing I would say is I would try to only use this when you're actually scaling use cases. Otherwise, it's kind of heavyweight to solve for just, the kind of project that I'm working on here as a quick example. But they are powerful. Like um, if you do have a lot of output you're generating for usually business reasons, honestly, then they can be really helpful to set up automations for all these workflows. And they can be changed pretty easily. Like for example, all of these parameters you can see here, it's like whether it's generating one or what model it's using, it's a pretty easy way to just update the flows you have. And so it's kind of a fun way of just like continuing to build a workflow, but I would start by if you notice yourself doing something a lot, try nodes. But if you haven't been doing repetitive work, it is probably overkill. Cool. So thank you for attending my little TED talk on flows. You can play around with it. It's really cool. But probably the things that'll trip you up is when you try to run something, like if I'm trying to run something and you get an error, we probably didn't connect the right input to it. So for this doesn't have a prompt. And so I couldn't run this one, for example, because I need to have a prompt here first. And so, until you have that, like I added one up here, I'll show you. Um, until you have that, you couldn't really run it. And so it'll give you error messages, but that's probably the one I'd see that messes people up the most. And then you can, change the prompt and run them all again from the beginning. I'm just showing you this latest node. And then you can put outputs here. So you could extract frame, you could upscale, extend, etc. Upscaling would be really helpful to do in the reference image and in the end video. And then one final note on upscaling, I'll show you one more thing in the video editor that I forgot, but honestly, you probably don't need to worry too much about um, you don't need to worry too much about upscaling unless, let's say, you're using a wide shot or have something incredibly detailed, and you could try upscaling the image that you're using as the input and also the output, but you'd be surprised in the project you've seen here. Sorry, I was slowing down because this reminded me of something. I'll show you how to speed up videos in a little bit because this came out really slow. Um, but in this, we didn't use too much upscaling. You can often ask Nano Banana to upscale as well, but there's some handy tools. So, for example, let me just find one. Actually, one of these ones we made down here would be good because it wasn't very clear like this. You can just say, oops, sorry. Um, you can ask Nano Banana to upscale it. I can just say, let's upscale. That's one way. Um, And then, but then you also have tools within the project here. So you can, oh, this one was upscaled, sorry. You can do them straight from here. Upscale, and you have two different models here that you can choose to do that. So test them out here, but you can also test out using the model itself to upscale. And then one note, I got a random model issue on Nano Banana, so it couldn't upscale it, but that's actually just from the provider, Google. So it looks like that's just got a temporary outage. Good thing we have more than one model though, right? So you can use a different one. All right, so that's flows. We talked a little bit about that, and then there is one more actually. Let's just say I'm using. I want to find a video real quick. Um, this one's actually pretty already upscaled, so it's not really worth it. But um, it is worth noting that we do have an 8K option in upscaling for video now. And so if you click on upscale for a video, different than an image, there's all upscaling capabilities. It goes into, again, this side menu down here. And you can choose the tool you're using for upscale. And under this one, the Gaia, we have an 8K option here. It is a long wait time. So I could click this and it'll take a minute. I'll do it, but it'll take a minute. And it can upscale to 8K. But again, for all of this, for the video you saw, we're using 1 and 2K for most of this stuff, and it still looks pretty great. And I think the only things that are upscaled are wide shots, basically. So worth calling it
One
out.
question, one
Mhm.
question that we received from Basra, and apologies if I mispronounced your name. The question is, are we able to edit our model and specs, such as with or without audio or duration, while generating video on Storyboard section?
On the storyboard section. So a few notes on storyboard. First off, you can change these parameters. Like, let me go back to one of these videos, like this one. Maybe I'll use this one. That was an upscale. One second. Um, Give me 1 minute. I'll just create video here. So again, a lot of these specs, you can change down here. And you were saying that what model specs? Oh, like audio on off. Some of those you're interested
Yep.
in. One note about the storyboard is that I would either use the storyboard when first starting a project to get a sense for how you would split it out, or once you have your final shots to lay them out to get a sense for how your project is going to come together. When you find yourself using this to, for example, if I said like OG girl runs into the water on the beach, if I find myself generating an image and video in Storyboard, I think the best practice is then to move that into GenSpace because you do have so many more tools available in the GenSpace. So here I can generate, for example, one scene or like one image, sorry, and then one video. But you are, in fact, more handicapped with or you're more limited with the amount of tools you have for the image and video generation than you would have in that gen space. And so what I would do is I would take that and I would edit it in gen space like this. And that way you have all these tools opened up for you again. Audio on off, frames per second, how many videos you're generating as a result, the video resolution, things like that. So basically use Storyboard either for the beginning to get a rough sense of how you're going to map out your project, or at the end to try to get a sense for your final shots, how they're going to come together before you go to the video editor. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
I do something similar when I'm in storyboard. All of my images that I favorite, I go from favorite to storyboard to kind of get the lay of the land for how the story will read.
Mhm.
And then from there, I go back to GenSpace, edit the video, get a good one, and send it to video editor. So
Mhm.
similar to this project, the videos are used towards the end. Some people, like myself, will use it towards the beginning to get like those images and the story
Mhm.
laid out that way.
And by the way, I saw one comment about like the elements, and so this wasn't a real person. The element, this OG girl or the mom. We can actually show you the prompts where we first generated her. And but if I noticed the example of when using a celebrity, often there are things built into the model where when you re reuse real people, it might change them. So if you're using a celebrity, there are some model safeguards built in. You can try different models, but in general, like there are some protections when you're using real people that are recognizable. So that might be, even if you're uploading many angles of them, it still might not let you. That's possible. I'd have to look into that more, but I know that that's been a thing in the past with some models, where if you're trying to use a real person, it might prohibit you. But speaking of, I think I can remember where we first generated this one. This might take a minute, but it wasn't as crazy as you might think in terms of this OG girl and how we got her. Um, Okay, so up here we're playing around with different characters. You can see the types of prompts. Often the prompts are quite lazy, like slow motion, camera orbits child. So like you can get a pretty cool result from just like lazy prompting, and half of it is lazy prompting, half of it is using standard cinematic language. And I'll show you that example here. Um, you can even misspell and it gets it like move camera into close up and it will still get it. Um, you use caps sometimes do work with LLMs to drive, like if they're making mistakes, all caps can make it work better, which is kind of funny. It's just like a person if you're yelling at them. But this was I'm pretty sure the original OG shot. So it just said like low angle slow motion shot, young Middle Eastern girl in bedroom. Dutch angle. That's just, again, I wouldn't know what that is, but you can use chat for some example cinematic styles. For most of these, I wouldn't know them either, but you can say, give me some cinematic styles to test out. In here, we use 35 millimeter codec, 400 foot film, 20 millimeter wide angle lens, extreme heavy grain, soft focus, etc. There are some negative prompts here. I often don't use negative prompts too much, but if you find yourself getting a lot of artifacts, you can play around with adding default negative prompts like no film borders, no film frame edges, no like embedded text. Actually, embedded text sometimes is an issue, so I would use that one. But that was the original. So you can see the characters are slightly different, but I believe this was the shot that we used for the element. Let me take a look. Um, yeah, that was it. So it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like, give me some examples of like a young kid in this cardboard suit or whatever. And then we use that single image. And if you're experiencing issues with your element, it's possible, like if you're using a celebrity, it's possible the model is like actually preventing you. And yes, you can change element names. Often I just create new ones. But you can edit the element here and change oh, actually, it will not let me. I would just create a new one. Um, but what I would do is I normally just either swap in new images, but I often create new ones. And it can get a little cluttered, so then I just delete them. But it's often I'm playing around with things. And to be honest, sometimes when I'm making a project, I'll find a better reference image and use that. A good example here is sometimes I'll have an image where it's not showing enough of my character, and then later in the process, I'll get one where it shows the character in a more straight on shot, and I will just make a new like OG girl one and then delete the old one. So, but you can just tag anything you tag the character in, it'll have it. But remember, any previous shots, that have it tagged in your storyboard, etc. If you delete it, that might impact that. All right, there's a few other things to show. I want to show one thing real quick. So in video editor, let me just play a short snippet. This isn't like the final version of this project. It's only about like 23 seconds of the minute long one because I want to show how some stuff came together. But so these are not synced with the audio. I want to call that out. I just imported a song. It was generated via Suno, but you can easily just, get something here. But this particular track was imported via Suno. But I'll play a quick segment and then show you something like how we do some of the transitions at the end. So basic things, but often a lot of these, you're just dragging. Oops, sorry. You're just dragging the clip to make it snappier according to the beat of the music, which you can see down here. But I want to call out something because we touched on this briefly last time, but the transitions element, I want to call it more. I love this. Often what we do is just have these like snappy cuts for something like this, like you know, you don't need a fade in, fade out, but there's a few reasons this could be really helpful. So first off, at the end, for example, when we have that like voiceover, like, what was it like? Book your best vacation on Tripoli or whatever. So we have this beach scene, but let's say I want this logo. What you would do, like in the past, for example, if I swap down here and I grab, this, or let me just select it and insert it. The problem is, this is its own image, it's its own thing. And let me just take down, give me 1 second. If you put these together, unfortunately, one would black out the other. And so I'm just going to mute it so that it doesn't play. That doesn't work, right? A few things here. If you're trying to create that effect we had before, number one, you can edit in GenSpace, and what you could do is just do this and say remove background, and that's what this is. And when you see that's like kind of speckle pattern, the checkerboard, that's the format where the background is removed. So this will load in a second, but I'll just click this one because it's already removed. But let's apply changes, and I should delete this one actually. I didn't apply the change, but I already have it from over here. So you have this one with the checkerboard pattern. I insert that. So now this is let me delete this one. Give me 1 second. Move this over. Okay, so now, for example, this is transparent, so it's overlaid on top of it. And so already you can start layering things. This is really important and helpful in title scene, like end cards, commercials, intros, things like that. You can still do a number of other things I want to call out. You can edit the opacity here, which is really helpful. There are different blending modes, but let me show you the easiest way to do this stuff. So if you're just trying to get this to line up at the end like this, let me put the music back on. So click this button, Edit Transition, and it'll give you some preview. So let me mute this so it's not so annoying. This will give you some previews for that transition. So here we have the fade in. You can change the duration, so it's a slow fade in. You have the slide. You got all these like classic, things. But I just honestly use fades lots, and then the duration thing, it makes a big difference whether it's snappy or not. But that's the way that you can achieve, like most of this was just, Nano Banana Pro, LTX 2.3 Pro and Fast, a little bit of Cling, and a song from Suno. Lined it up here, and then there was a VO, which you can do in the platform, or you can import from anywhere. Like you could use any audio you prefer, 11 Labs or whatever, and also import that audio. You can have multiple tracks here. But this project isn't too complex, but the only animations you saw, we have those now built in natively, and it's even easier now with this edit transition button. And you can do them between things here. This isn't going to look bad because I'm not doing this on purpose, but just to show you, actually, that's only an image. So let me just undo that. These two are videos, I believe. So you could add a transition here, for example, and fade in. I think it doesn't look good. I normally just have the snappy clicks, but the fade in is really helpful, especially when you're layering stuff, or end cards or opening scenes, things like that. And then the last thing, when you have something, I'll get and delete that transition because it wasn't meant to anyways. You can play around with these blending modes. I tend to keep it really simple, but play around with what you want when you're adding multiple layers. And again, you can have several layers of video. at least two layers of audio. And so projects like you saw, like this whole fake ad we made, you can achieve all of that within here. The only thing that we pulled in from outside was the audio, but you can see the rest of it, how you can line these things up and do the transitions we did, stuff like that within the platform. So made much easier now. I love transitions. I love the layers, the transparency elements, these parts of it. But you can see that now on this little sub tab here. And then you can also access it. Like I said, it's really easy to access through just hovering between two elements, which is great. So check that out if you haven't. I think it adds a really nice final touch to all the video editing pieces.
Yeah, and we got a couple of questions. Someone asked, how can we add our logo animation file to our project?
I would start with the brand kit part. Ignore these. There's a lot. This is kind of a demo
And
project.
one thing
Yeah.
to acknowledge,
Yeah.
Corbett, though, is that Brand Kit is available at the enterprise
Oh, fair.
level.
Good point.
But we could upload it as an object,
Yes.
as well.
Good call. I forgot what account I'm demoing, so thank you for that call out.
No
Honestly.
worries.
And we'll make everyone jealous here by showing I have like a trillion credits, and so I burn through lots of things without paying attention to efficiency, but that's why I want to call out efficiency
Yeah,
matters. Like some things that we walk through that are really expensive are upscaling to 8K, some of these more complicated things like the models here, we try to lay out what's expensive in the video
yeah,
model section. But so I've been burning through a ton of tokens, worth calling that out. But yeah, what you can do is upload that, as Alasia said, object, and you can do trillion. I'm sorry, we are not you have to work at Lightricks to get a trillion credits. Or we'll do like a Willy Wonka golden ticket thing one day, maybe.
yeah,
Um, but okay, last thing. You can have an animated logo, and I'll show you one thing. Let me think of an example. Just give me a second. Let me just make a video. I'll just do some random. Let me just use Google. Via is pretty good at this. If you use the heavier models, Kling would be good. I'm just going to do this. I'll show two examples for fun. An opening title scene with text overlay saying beach day. Oops. As the camera zooms. So you can make an opening title with models with like you can overlay them just with the model, but I've found separating them can be helpful if you're struggling. If you don't get it in like one or two goes, just like extract your title sequence, like your logo, whatever it is. You can upload videos. Remember, you can upload videos to LTX Studio, and so you can upload a video. And if I have that, like let's just say I create a video with this, I'll just say. I don't know what I want to do with this. I'll just say, I'm just gonna say animate. I'm lazy. Animate this. I don't know. I'm brain dead today. But so if you have an animated element, again, you can just overlay it. You change the
yeah.
background color, overlay it, make it transparent, etc. And then overlay it on your video editor. And that's one way you can handle it. We'll just let this complete, see what it gives us. Let me just check my notes just to make sure. So just to recap, we talked about in the edit space some new things like camera angles, image adjusting, upscaling. We talked about the new VO 3.1 Lite. It's very affordable, speaking of a trillion tokens and credits.
Yeah.
The new flows element over here. Yeah, let's see what Google did with this one. Oh, that's LTX. Okay. Um, so it has like some basic beach day here, but see, I don't like the text. Side note, you can have an element, I forgot to mention this. You can have an element font. So you just take a screenshot of on your computer, search for the font book and take a screenshot of what you like, and you can just upload that screenshot into here. That's one way to do it. And then you can have the text be, more interesting than just this. But the other way to do it is make the beach day text and overlay it as we showed you with the kind of Tripoli thing here. So yeah, there's like a really basic animation. I don't really love it. I didn't give it any direction though. Okay, so again, we covered the edit space stuff like camera angles, image adjusting, the new efficient VO 3.1 model, the flows for like scaling assets up here, some of the new video editing features like transparency of layers. In the past, we talked about some of these other things like speeding up and slowing down assets. I think we talked about that. Let me just filter by videos. Oh, I'll just click on one of these. Um, we talked about speeding up and slowing down. I referenced this in the flows since I got a really slow video. You can use that to speed up and slow down something. It's worth calling out. Been very helpful when finalizing things because sometimes you do get results that are like oddly slow. Talked about blending modes and transitions. Oh, last thing, we got a few minutes left. We're gonna hop over into this. Glad I read my notes. I want to show you the dubbing and captions part. So go out of the project, easiest way to do this, and then go to the scaling side on the left here. You have dubbing and captions. So captions, really easy, honestly. Just throw in a video, pick your caption. You can edit text and translate, but I just used like basic bubble pop style text. But again, you can go really detailed on this. Like this one has like a fun animation for what the focus word, but you can go really crazy on the styling, position, animation, etc. Really fun to play around with. Karaoke height, word by word, etc. So I love this tool. Very fun, very useful, super utilitarian. I did something really basic here just to show. Let me play this.
Of adventures. The world is full of adventures waiting to happen.
So you can see
Take
got
the world.
sorry. It's got our like, emphasis word coloring. It's got that bubble uh, like text that I asked it for, and it's pretty quick. You can queue it up. It'll give you a notification when it's done. Takes a minute or so for a 10-second clip. But definitely try out captioning. That's been very fun. And then what else should I do? Let me go back one more second. Just want to click this. I would say the other one and that I want to call it is dubbing. And so I just took a short a promo video that Lightrix had made, and Alicia and I were talking about this. Both of our French is not great, and so we can't vouch for the translation a little bit. But this wasn't English, and I just made it in French. One thing I want to call out though is that the purpose of this video was to add upscaling.